Hi, welcome to Success Factors. I'm your host, Brenda Siri, and I'm joined today by Mark Hedley, co founder of Adeus. Mark, welcome to the show.
Great. Thank you, Brenda. Good to see you.
You're in one of my favorite places in the world over there in London in the UK, and I know that's home to you, but you've had an amazing career, global career. When I first met you in 2019, you were at Korn Ferry, and we both ended up at Korn Ferry, and we even both have crossed paths at Citigroup. You've had an incredible career working for companies like Deutsche Bank and several global organizations. But in 2021, you went to a startup company, and today you have your own startup company, which was just named one of London's 100 best startups in 2025. How has your career trajectory taken you from global organizations to being the founder of a successful startup?
Yeah, thank you for that intro. I've been very fortunate. I've worked on 4 continents for the last 25 years, a variety of different corporate roles, everything from business development through to merger and acquisition, and then most recently global talent. Lots of different roles from companies of sort of 100 employees up to hundreds of thousands, for example, Citibank. Through that time, I've developed a lot of skills, a lot of experience. Everything's been across border, so I've always had a sort of global mindset. And in 2021, as you mentioned, I joined a company, actually a Boston-based company, that was a global leader in global remote talent and global remote workforce. That was just after COVID, when we'd become comfortable working remotely, working on Zoom, working asynchronously, working across borders and time zones. So it was a period of massive growth for that company. We went from sort of 500 employees when I joined to 1,400 across 40 countries in about 18 months. So it was a real rocket ship growth and in a very well-funded sector. And I looked at the founder of that company. It's a female-founded company, and she's absolutely fantastic, one of the best entrepreneurs I know. And I looked at what she had done within her career, and I said, the only difference between her and me is she took a risk and she backed herself. So after sort of 25 years, I thought, this is the time. I've been building businesses for other people, building teams, and most recently products for that particular company. I said, it's time that I back myself. And I found my co-founder was in exactly the same position with his career. So we decided to go away from the safety of the corporate world and build Adeus. And that was January 2024. So we're sort of 20 months into it now.
Wow. And I've done it myself, and I know that aha moment and what it does to you inside, right? And so let's dive a little deeper into Adeus. Tell me about the name and what was the inspiration for starting this company?
Yeah, the name is it's actually a Portuguese word. It means farewell. It's a little bit like adios in Spanish, but in adios you would say casually adios, goodbye. Adeus is actually farewell to somebody you're not likely to see again. And if you go back to the Latin, it's a derivative of Adeus, which is to God. Well, we're a wills, legacy planning, end of life planning company, so we couldn't think of anything that was more appropriate than Adeus. And then from a business perspective, we thought, okay, let's check if it's trademarked. It was not trademarked, not under the category that we want to use it. Are the domain names available? Because that's the thing, you can come up with the best name in the world. It can be appropriate for your company, but somebody else might be using it. So that was really the foundation for the name. A lot of what we've done at Adeus has been serendipity, just luck. It was just a name that came to mind, and we did some research. There were no big marketing agencies or anything behind it, but that's the foundation. I think it's something that it's also a bit of a North Star for us when we think about what it means to us and what it means to people. And given we're wills and legacy planning, we thought it was very appropriate. So Adeus was born.
Wow. So if I understand it correctly, you're actually a tech company. Can you tell me a little bit more about your products that you have developed?
Yeah, I mean, the foundation for the company was really my co-founder, Nick. He'd gone through a family situation where he had to support a family member going through the death of a loved one. And he was looking at the paperwork that's involved, and it's quite an archaic, antiquated process. And in England and Wales, the law that governs wills was written in 1837, which was when Queen Victoria was coronated and Charles Dickens first wrote Oliver Twist. So it's a long time ago, and it literally hasn't changed in that almost 200 years. So when we say antiquated, we really mean it. It's very paper-based. And Nick said to me, Mark, you just can't believe like how bureaucratic this process. There has to be a better way. And we both worked in enterprise technology companies, digitizing paper-based processes over time. We've got very used to using digital tools, mobile phone for everything. So this sector is ripe for disruption. So we moved into sort of a research phase. How do we change this sector? What are the type of tools that we can use? We did realize that at the time that the Law Commission, which is a part of the government here, had also realized that the law just hadn't kept up with the way that we live, the family structures, the cross-border lifestyles, the digital legacy, all of the stuff that we have around us. So they're actually looking at changing the legislation. So we're focused very much on electronic wills. In the US, it's often called e-wills. That's the foundation, but then actually building digital products around that, something that you can use on your own device, whether it's a desktop or in your mobile phone, to keep updated, keep things, everything around your estate, everything around your legacy. Look at it sort of more as a financial wellness rather than it's a piece of paper, it's a transaction. So that's the foundation of the business. It is technology. We look to build on top of the type of technology that we use every day, Zoom, for example, video calls, those types of things, biometrics, digital ID, digital signatures, but put it in a customer-friendly way, the type of thing that you would expect an app on your phone. So really changing from what is paper-based, archaic, bureaucratic into just something that is convenient and removes the friction that we see within this space.
As you were talking about that very antiquated law, I was thinking I was in your beautiful home country earlier this year, and I happened to be there when Parliament was coming to court one day, and those things that I've seen in movies with the white wigs, I mean, that's how it still really is. I was really astonished by that. So it sort of doesn't surprise me, to think that these laws really, are still intact from so long ago.
Yeah, and it's something that we love the tradition, but it's just not practical. And if you look at the way that we use technology, whether it's opening a bank account or sign up for your 401k or getting an insurance policy, it's all done digitally. But this area has been restricted by the law. The law is very, very specific, and it was written for the days that you lived in one house in one village and you lived a very simple life. So fortunately, the government have realized that and said, okay, it's time to make a change. And the change that's expected, the law is expected to change next year to allow for electronic wills, which means you can create the will online, you can digitally execute it, and you can digitally store it. So all the way through. The UK will be, or England and Wales specifically, will be a world leader in that. There are places that do have electronic wills, but not to the extent it's likely to change here.
So we talked a little earlier about your illustrious career, Mark, but are you and your co-founder actually lawyers as well?
No, we're not actually, which is sometimes surprising to people. And it goes back to this is an industry, the legal industry itself has evolved over time. And often they say you can't disrupt an industry from the inside. It sometimes takes somebody outside who doesn't have the preconceptions, who doesn't have all the barriers that we tried that before and it didn't work. So Nick and myself, we're both from outside the industry, but the legal industry itself, and particularly given the sensitivity of the topic, we're talking about people's estates and their loved ones and their legacies. It's very important. So we have a group of legal advisors within the business. We're also supported by Law Tech UK, which is part of the Ministry of Justice. It's supported by the Ministry of Justice here, but they're looking to promote innovation in the broader legal industry, and particularly when it relates to accessibility to the law, to the broader population, right? Because not everybody has the money to go and see a solicitor or an estate planner. So they've been very, very supportive. So it's very strong legal sort of foundations for the business, but Nick and myself are able to push it a little bit and say, why is it that way? Why can't we change that? And often we can change that. It's just a way of working, and the industry itself knows that this type of disruption doesn't generally come from within, and are incredibly supportive. So we walk in, there are two non-lawyers into big law firms. I was in a very large London-based law firm yesterday, and they're very receptive because they see this is the direction of travel. We need to make things more accessible to a broader population. We need things to be more convenient, remove all the friction. As a law firm charging hundreds of dollars an hour, we're not the ones that are going to change that. It's people like you. So actually, long sort of answer to your question, but we're not lawyers, but we're certainly backed by them.
And are your products for individuals, or is this something that's for a company to provide, to their employees as an additional perk, I guess?
Yeah, it's a good question, because obviously the end user is me and you. It's everybody. It's every adult that needs a will. But generally what we've done is we've looked at it from a business perspective here and said, we're a new company. This is a really sensitive area. We don't have a lot of trust. We don't have a brand. We don't have credibility in that space. So what we're doing is we're partnering with charities at the moment to help with their fundraising. So there's a very big sector, legacy giving. If you think about alumni and universities, donating to the university or to schools or to charities. So we support them because they aren't really the trust, and the credibility comes through that organization. As we grow, we're looking to go through, when you create a will, it's usually a life event. Like you get married, you have children, you buy a house, you inherit something. So working with organizations, so banks, life insurers, mortgage brokers, independent financial advisors, who are already working with people that are going through these life events, and they'll be able to say, do you have a will? No. Here's our partner, Adeus, and build it into maybe their process as well. The last one, as you mentioned, I've come from the last 15 years in human resources, is as an employee benefit. So we do have a few of our early customers who are companies quite progressive that are actually providing this as an employee benefit to their employees, providing that really holistic. We're supporting you at different life stages. So it is that, and obviously it is B2C. There is a consumer at the end of it. So we have a presence there, and we have a brand that you can see on our colours. It's probably not what's expected. It's a little bit intentional on our part. We're not what you expect from wills and legacy planning. So there is certainly a consumer element to that, but it's often through channel partners.
I love that, actually. So we've all heard stories about wills being contested after someone passes away. With all of your products being digital and accessible by a phone or a computer, how do you protect a person's will from being forged by someone else? And is the information encrypted?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's often we're investor backed. So, when you build a technology company, there's a lot of upfront investment needed to build the technology, build the platform. So we've had a lot of discussions around that. And I always bring people back to, what is the current best practice? Well, the current best practice is a piece of paper signed, probably in a folder in your drawer, maybe in a solicitor's office, but often not. Can be lost, it can be damaged, it can be destroyed. It's much more accessible to people for fraud and forgery. So what we've looked at when we moved to electronic wills is using the technology to solve all those problems. So it is encrypted, it is securely stored, everything is time-stamped, it's backed up, it's fully encrypted. The only place it ever really comes together is on your computer screen, and obviously even when it's stored there, but that's not enough. So what we've done is we've created a product, we call it Adeus True Wills. What it means is, if you create your will with Adeus, we put it on our technology, so it's immutable. It cannot be deleted. It's time-stamped. It's permanent. It cannot be edited. It cannot be forged, fraud, those types of things. It's built on blockchain, and really what that does is we encrypt the document. we put it onto blockchain. We're putting a fingerprint of it. We're not putting the document itself. But like your fingerprint does, your fingerprint doesn't tell you anything about the rest of your body, but it tells you about your identity. So we use Adeus True Wills to do that. So it's using the technology that we're used to with our banking and insurances. Everything's all online there, but going the extra step and backing that up to sort of that digital fingerprint on blockchain. So if something does go to court, there's a contested will, we can, as an independent third party, say, this is the identical document that was created by the person. We have stored it. We've got an audit trail, so we can see every change that has been made over the years in a will, when it was made, by who, timestamp, permanent, and backed up that nobody can touch that, right? And that's something that I think is really going to be a game changer in this space, and not just in wills, but anything else, proving the authenticity, the provenance of something. And if I go back to current best practice is a piece of paper, and they have to bring in forensic handwriting experts to make sure something hasn't been changed. We can simply look at the original document and look at the digital fingerprint and say 100% without a doubt that has not been edited. Or if it has, we can also point that out to the courts.
Wow, that really adds such an incredible measure of security for your customers that they don't have with that piece of paper. I think that's incredible, and I can't wait to see more of that type of technology for other types of companies. Is your product available globally, or is it only in the UK?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you look at wills, they're jurisdiction specific. So it's not even the UK, and for those of you from outside the UK, we're one nation, but there are 4 countries: England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Scotland and Northern Ireland actually have completely different legal systems, over the years. So we are very focused on wills for England and Wales. The reason we're focused on England and Wales is the law will change next year to allow us to really build something quite unique, proprietary for electronic wills in England and Wales. But the other part of our business is broader legacy planning. So it's great to have a will, but if you don't know where everything is, it makes it very difficult. So we have a digital vault. We also have mental capacity assessments. We also have other sort of products and features to help people with legacy planning. That's available globally. And even in these early stages and without any real push, we have customers in 15 countries, including the US. We actually have Australia, Asia, Europe, and North America. We have customers at the moment. They're using the legacy planning tools. They're able to upload their own locally created will that maybe is on paper. They scan it, they can upload it just so it's securely there. So it is a global business. We will expand into other countries. It is a technology business. So we built the technology layer. We layer the legislation on top of that. And what I would say is, in terms of countries, it's generally British Commonwealth countries or common law countries. So certainly the United States, certainly Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, some of those countries. So we built, and you have seen my career. I've lived around the world. We want to be in other countries as well. But just given the legislation changing next year here, it'll be a step change. It's going to be such fundamental change for so many people. We want to really focus on that and then push beyond that with wills into other countries.
In the US, most people use either an estate planner or attorney, or as you refer to them, Mark, a solicitor, or an online will building tool. However, we do have to print them out and have them signed, witnessed, notarized. Are there any states in the United States today that are allowing digital wills?
Yeah, it's a great question, because when we started the company, we came from outside the sector, so we really didn't know. So we did a lot of research. There are 14 states in the US. It's a state jurisdiction, so there is no federal law around this. It's all based on the states. There are 14 states that have enacted different legislation for what in America they term the e-wills. The issue being that they were all enacted separately. So although you can create the will online, and there's online will companies, as you say, the way that they're executed, the way that they're witnessed, do we need to be on a synchronous, like a live video call at the point of time and I say, Brenda, I'm going to sign my will with it? That is different in each state. And also the storing of the documents as well is different. So there is no US sort of standard federal way of creating electronic will. There are only 14 states at the moment that do that. There was the Uniform Law Commission, which is it's a non-profit in the US, published a sort of draft legislation 2019 that can be used as a foundation for states. So states can adopt the Uniform Electronic Wills Act. There's about 6 or 7 states that have enacted that, Washington, D.C. being one of them. And that lays the foundation for it. But some of these were developed before COVID, all right? And I'm not saying like COVID was a really kind of a pivotal point in our history, but it was also the time that we became comfortable using online video, using DocuSign, using electronic identification and signatures and that. So the US is probably has a long way to go in terms of the opportunity for electronic wills, and actually can probably leapfrog some of the technology. I think that's where England and Wales are being quite progressive on that one. But yes, they are legal, but every state is slightly different. So if you do live in Arizona versus Minnesota, yes, you can use them, but you need to check what the local regulations are there.
Interesting. So, we talk about change, and I know, as a child, my parents owned one home in one city, and, times have really changed a lot. I mean, people have assets in other countries, vacation homes, and, in the US, it's very common to have them in Mexico. So how do you tie those assets together in a will?
Yeah, it's interesting because I live in London, as you said in the beginning. A lot of people here do have holiday homes in France or in Spain. It's important to look at the type of asset that it is, right? So if it's a real asset, I'm talking about homes, property, land, these are immovable. So actually, if I have a holiday home in Puerto Vallarta in Mexico, I actually need to have a Mexican will there just to make sure that that's protected and that the courts locally will recognize that. But I have to be careful. It doesn't revoke my US will. So if I live in Dallas and I have a US will, often a will revoke any other will that's been created before that. So it's very important it's drafted in such a way that it's standalone, it's self-contained, it's only for that particular property. If it's personal property, so individual things that can be moved easily, jewelry, trinkets, heirlooms, those types of things, digital assets within bank accounts. Now, you can have that in a specific will for your home country. That's generally okay because that's a movable asset. But obviously, if it's property, if it's land, it's not. What I would say again, it's one of those things where every jurisdiction, and especially for US viewers, every state's slightly different. So it's important to look at that. But what we would recommend is you'd have something that covers your property in another location, but it's underneath or it's linked to that they both reference each other. The most important thing is make sure that one doesn't revoke the other. So it's a little bit complex, but it's something that in Europe we do see quite a lot with people. The other thing is in terms of your digital assets, right? Where are they? Right, they're on a server somewhere. In Europe, it's often in Ireland. It could be anywhere. So actually, that's one of the complicating factors. I think it's quite straightforward with physical things that we can see and touch, or bank accounts and other things that we've become accustomed to. But what about all your photos in iCloud? What about your social media accounts? What about all your storage on Dropbox and Google Cloud and those things? And that's where really having a holistic legacy plan is really, really important. It's not as you say, living that one house for your life and everything is a paper trail. You open up the drawer, you know where the utilities are and you know what life insurance policies are and everything. There's nice bundles of sort of statements and policies there. We don't have that. It's all online. So that's where Adeus comes in as that sort of one secure place that you can put information about all of those. We don't need passwords. We just need to know the existence of things, and particularly, cross-border people with more complex, I suppose, lifestyles. I think it's even more valuable.
So do you think a will is really enough when you're thinking about planning for how to distribute your assets to your beneficiaries?
It's the foundation. And if you have one, you're better off than 50% of people, and it's pretty consistent in developed countries. Less than 50% of people, adults, have a will. So if you do have one, you're doing better than a lot of people, the majority. But it's not enough. So I just mentioned I have 3 or 4 bank accounts. There's no paper trail there. I've lived in 8 or 9 countries. I've got sort of different assets in different places. It's very difficult. What we found is we talked to a lot of people. I gave up after talking to 150 people about what their experiences were. And it's a case of, it's great to have the will, but how do I find the bank accounts, all the other information? How do I find, and it's just the existence of it. There's probably 200 banks in the UK. Which bank does Mark Hedley have an account in? I don't know. So just being able to have those tracked in a digital vault that is secure and it's private for the individual, it's not shared until it needs to be. That's really important. The other thing that we find, and I think I mentioned, like digital legacy, right, is a case of all of my photos on my my device, my iPad and stuff is on iCloud. Well, actually, you don't actually have access to that. If somebody passes away, it's very difficult. You need to go to court to get access to that. There's some steps that you can take now to create what is called a legacy key holder. So somebody that you've nominated that would have access to your digital legacy. Some steps you need to do, and you can record that in the Adeus Digital Vault, and then obviously we pass that on. It's very important to help your loved ones, your next of kin, your executor to find all those things. It's also really important from a data protection perspective. There's a lot of fraud. There's a lot of sort of impersonation of people. Somebody's passed away. Their Facebook account is still there. It's still active. And what we've seen is bad actors come in and sort of represent themselves as somebody and use that for fraud. And that's where I think these are things that we're only just thinking about now as more of our lives are on digital. So, and answer the question, like a will is a great start. Everybody should have one. Everybody should update them. We say in the UK about 41% of people have a will. 20 to 30% of those wills are out of date, or they weren't executed properly, they weren't signed properly. So we're resolving a lot of those issues, but also having the digital vault, whatever you want to call it, to enable your next of kin to have all of the information that they need, all of the instructions that you would not have in a will. Right, the will is a legal document. It's a public document. After you pass away, it is a public document. There's a lot of things that I don't want Uncle Johnny to get hold of this. Write it in a letter. Put it in the Adeus Digital Vault. We can share that on your behalf. It doesn't need to be part of the will. So yeah, will plus sort of the digital vault, I think, is really where legacy planning is headed, and I think a lot of people are seeing the value in that now, particularly those that have experienced how difficult probate process. So once somebody's passed away, trying to put their hands around everything, and I think a lot of people have Excel spreadsheets and Google Drives and stuff like that, having actually one secure tool to help with that, and that's really one of the foundations that we built at Adeus on.
So, Mark, when people create a will, they usually have a designated party who oversees the division of assets. Is that something that occurs when using your product?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's literally the legal foundation. In the UK, we call it an executor. So the executor is legally responsible for distributing your assets, your estate, based on your wishes that are defined in a will. So what we've done is we obviously track that person through the will. The will is created through us. The executor is nominated there. We act as that trusted third party. So if something does happen to you, we verify the identity of the executor. We obtain a death certificate from the registry office. Then we give access to the executor. Also, if you don't have a will, so for example, maybe you're too young, you feel I don't need a will for whatever reason. If you've got things in the digital vault, you would nominate a key contact. So this is not a legal role, but a key contact is if something happens to me, this is the person that I would like to have access to, very specific information that's in the digital vault. So absolutely, it's still the foundation of that. You do, it's a probate and distributing assets to beneficiaries, etc. It's a very complex process, a very personal process, a stressful, emotional process. So we can't remove that. What we can do is provide that person with all the information that they need, and obviously the legal backing to make sure that the executor has the will. They know it's the most current one. Support them through the process. Fortunately, for most of us, this is not something we experience on a regular basis. So we want to be able to hold the hand of the executors, provide them all that information, provide them some of the guidance in there. So yes, still very fundamental part of what we do within creating a will within Adeus.
It's very impressive that you added in that support, right? Because when it comes time for, the will, it's because someone's gone through a loss. So I like that that's, the way you're thinking about this organization. And as you think about the future of Adeus, what do you see coming next for you?
It's quite amazing because we're 20 months into this, and having gone through a corporate career, sitting in boardrooms making decisions that take 12, 18 months to come around. Sometimes you're working a big project and it never hits because there's another priority. Startup world, it moves incredibly fast. So our goal at the moment moves us to May next year. We're supported by Innovate UK, which is a part of the UK government innovation fund. So they're supporting us to build the technology for electronic wills. That project ends in May next year. We're running really hard because some of this is actually quite complex. It's consolidating different tools that you're familiar with on a daily basis, but putting it in something that's really user-friendly, that is quite intuitive, that you can do on a mobile phone. So that's kind of a key goal for us. Obviously, the next one is when the law changes. So we are investor back. We will certainly sort of raise some more investment next year to really put the pedal to the metal, as they say, like really push really hard. Not one, from a business perspective, we need to take advantage of it. But two, if 41% of people in the UK have a will at the moment, we need to get that to 60. We need to get that to 70. We need more people to have that. So there'll be a lot of PR around that to push. The other thing about it is everybody that we talk to, even I've got 2 teenage boys, they know what a will is. They know what a legacy is. They know these things. Everybody's got an idea. So there's so many different ideas. And certainly with the pace of change, I'm in my 50s. I kind of grew up in the internet generation. I think I'm kind of tech savvy. But the pace of change with AI is quite incredible. So what we see at the moment is a will is still seen as a transaction. It's a piece of paper. It's something I need to do, and I'm going to put it away for 5 or 10 years. We want to change the sort of the narrative, the perception around that. It's a living document and it changes. So if we are managing your legacy in Adeus and you log in, then the little chatbot, comes up and says, hey, Mark, I see that you bought a new car. Do you want to include that in your will? Or you've had a new grandchild. Do you want to? And so like actually be able to change on almost a line item basis the things that have changed rather than having to rewrite your will. And that means that wills, they're up to date because, as I think I said earlier, it's great to have a will, but a lot of people's wills are out of date. They got married, they got divorced, they had 3 more grandchildren. These are not specified in the will. So really being able to provide tools and nudges for people, right? This is almost a psychological thing. Like, remind me about it and allow me to do it in 10 minutes and I'll do it. But if I've sort of, I remembered I should update my will and it's Sunday afternoon, I've got to call the solicitor on Monday, I'll see them on Wednesday, and Friday comes around, I'll get busy or I'll procrastinate. So that's, goal for us is how do we remove this friction? How do you make it easier for people? How is it on the device that you're holding in your hand at the point of time then you thought, I need to update that? So there's so many different ways that we can go with it. It's kind of, people think of it strange because it's so exciting what you can do with that, but actually just go back and think about how important is this? Somebody's passed away, there's grieving, there's stress, that you need to make these things easy for people. So that is kind of our goal, is to get more people to have a will, reduce contested wills, and help people through probate. And actually there's just a peace of mind and a stress relief on that, and it needs people that are coming in like Nick and myself with Adeus, hopefully to take a different view on that and help people. And as I say, the long answer to the story, but the ability to use technology and the pace of change now, and just our ability to absorb that change is significantly different than it was even 5 years ago. So we're quite excited about that.
You should be excited about that. I have been guilty of being that person. I was transferred to another state with a job a few years ago, and I didn't think about changing my will until I'd been there for a few months, and who knows what could happen, right? So I really like that your technology is also just sort of that subtle reminder when things happen and changes occur to keep that will current. So that's phenomenal. I'm so excited for what you've done. And if someone's watching today and they're interested in learning more about your products, where can they find you on the internet?
Hopefully, people always say, "How do you pronounce Adeus?" And I say, it doesn't matter if you can pronounce it, as long as you can spell it, Adeus. If you do Google search, the great thing about it is it's such a unique word. We actually come up top on Google rankings after the definition, even before dictionary definitions of Adeus. But it's adeuslife.com. If you do go on LinkedIn, Mark Hedley, I post quite a lot. Just to really get the message out there. So yeah, Mark Hedley on LinkedIn or adeuslife.com.
Yes, and we're showing a slide right now to our viewers so that they can get that information down. Mark, I wish you continued success with Adeus, and I can't wait to keep watching and cheering you on as you continue to grow. I love your posts on LinkedIn. They are super informative. So thank you so much for being on the show with me today or this evening where you are, I think, Mark. So really appreciate your time. Continued success to you and to Nick, and can't wait to see what's next. That's it.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, Brenda.
You are so welcome, Mark. And that's it for Success Factors today. We'll see you next time. Bye.